This video is the beginner's guide to your first last will and testament in Texas. And you really kind of need to know 3 things about wills in Texas. So first, let's talk about when you should do your first will. Well, basically, if you have assets, you should do a will. In fact, we have a lot of clients who are college-age students that maybe they've inherited some assets, or maybe they've just been big savers and they have some assets that way. But if you have real assets to speak of, even if they're not super valuable, you should have a will. Another important sort of milestone to get your first last will and testament is if you get married. Because now you're not just a bachelor or bachelorette that really doesn't have any responsibility to anyone. You have a family now, and somebody is kind of expecting you to help them out if the worst comes and you pass away. You don't want to leave a mess for your spouse, and you kind of owe that to your new spouse. And the real obvious milestone where you should definitely get your first will done if you don't already have one is when you have your first kid. Because not only does your will say sort of who gets what when you pass away, which is important in and of itself, it will typically also talk about who would be the guardian of your kid. So like physically, who will take care of your children. Trust me, you don't want the county or the state deciding what would happen to your children if you pass away without a good valid will where you've designated guardians. It's really important. Next, we need to talk about how you get your will done. Well, there are 2 main types of wills. There's a handwritten will and there's a typed will. Now, if you're going to have a typed will, you need to be careful. So like a real will, like a formal will, like you've probably seen before, that's a typed will. A typed will has a lot more requirements than a handwritten will. A handwritten will can pretty much just be written down in your own handwriting and signed, and as long as it kind of looks like a will and gives away your assets and such, then it's probably valid as a handwritten will. Now, I have a video about the differences between handwritten wills and typed wills, so you might want to check that video out. Now, how to get a typed will is really going to be the focus here. Now, as an estate planning attorney, you're going to go, well, of course, Isaac is going to say that your will should be done by a lawyer, but your will should totally be done by a lawyer. It's just better. We know what we're doing. And that's not just from law school, that's from experience. The law, especially here in Texas, is not necessarily intuitive. And if you go to some online form generator, you have a lawyer, it's you. And you don't have any experience. And all of these default laws and things that aren't intuitive and frankly shock most people, you don't know what they are. And so even if you're going to do a basic will, it's better to have an attorney who does wills prepare it for you. And by the way, that carries with it some other advantages because you are building a relationship with a professional, which is an important thing to do. I mean, what happens if something happens to your spouse and you need somebody that you can go to handle that will after your loved one has died? Well, now you know somebody. You have a relationship. You're not out in the ocean by yourself wondering what to do. You have a guy. You know what to do. You know where to go. And beyond that, once you start your basic will, sometimes you may grow into something else like a trust. And again, that existing relationship pays off huge because you're not starting all over from scratch. And also, I have to give another little warning. There are some websites and things like that that say, you can have an attorney help you with your will for like really cheap, like $49 or something like that. And I'm just going to tell you, my impression of those has been they're not giving you the attention that you would normally get from a real lawyer. So I'm not saying that you're not getting what you paid for. I'm saying you're getting exactly what you paid for. And so you're getting $49 worth. So I'm also not saying that if you spend like $3,000 on an attorney that you're necessarily getting the world's best will. All I'm saying is if you're gonna have your will done by a lawyer, don't go with the cheapest, okay? Don't go with the most expensive, okay? Maybe look at a few websites, get some feedback from some loved ones, set up a consultation, and go with somebody who seems like a good fit for you that's neither the cheapest or the most expensive in town. Lastly, I really want to talk to you about what you need to know before you tackle creating your will. So first of all, it's really easy. And if you're going to go see an attorney, we kind of want you to be a blank slate. We don't want you to have gone to Dr. Google before you come to see us, because now we kind of have to undo some things that you read online. Not always. I know you're smart and your Googling is probably really, really good. So this comment isn't towards you, it's to other people. But there are some other people that think they have it all figured out before they come to meet with us, and that can be a little bit of a problem. So let me just say this, there's kind of the right amount of informed. And so here's what we like. We like for you to kind of have in mind, if you pass away, who would you like to end up with your different assets, right? So do you have like all goes to a certain person, or do you have fractions that you want to go to certain people? Sort of have that in mind before you come in. So don't have it locked in your mind, just have kind of in mind how you would want things to go before you come in and start doing your will. Number two, I would say you need to have in mind who you want to be in charge of doing that doling out. So that's going to be called the executor of your will. And so again, I don't want you to mentally be locked into a particular person. I want you to kind of have in mind a group of people that you might consider for that role. And then when you meet with your attorney, you can kind of drill down and kind of look at what different factors should I be looking at? Their ability, how far away they live, and let us kind of weigh that together. And so that executor, you'll have kind of a primary and some alternates listed. And then the other thing that you need to have in mind, particularly if you have minor children, is who's going to get the kids? Who's going to care for your children if the worst comes to you? And so you need to have kind of who will physically care for them, and then also some alternates listed in that situation. So if you could come to your attorney with those basic data points, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna have a really easy, friendly, and productive meeting, and then from that, your attorney can prepare your will, and then after that, you're gonna feel great. After your will's in place, you're gonna feel awesome, like, I don't need to worry about this, there's a plan in place. So obviously this video is really, really basic, but this was just the beginner's guide to your first will. And if you could come in to an attorney's office just having seen this video, you're gonna be in really, really good shape.